Ekurhuleni Mayor Mzwandile Masina has called on members of the party who are implicated in wrongdoing to step down. This as the ANC's National Executive Committee meeting of the ANC is currently underway. The meeting began yesterday afternoon and went on through the night, discussing, among other things, the latest developments in KwaZulu Natal.
I don't know the reasons behind what Comrade Tony would have said. And I'm sure the leadership will come and explain to us through the statement, and then we'll take it from there, because I'm sure there should be reasons why he opted to ask the president to step aside.
Do you share his sentiments or not?
Well, it's not about sentiments. I'm sharing the sentiment about the resolutions. Everyone who's got a matter before the court must step aside.
So he's got a matter with the public protector in charge of the
Well, if there is a matter that is before the court that involves the president must step aside.
Let's join now our reporter Mzwandile Masina, who is at that NEC meeting, to tell us about the behind-the-scenes. Ekurhuleni Mayor Mzwandile Masina, as we've just mentioned, Mzwandile, speaking out against what he says is the corruption of individuals, but pointing specifically in this point to President Cyril Ramaphosa, saying that perhaps he should step down. Any particular charges that he's pointing to say why?
At this point in time, President Cyril Ramaphosa has no charges against him in any court of law. We do know that he is involved in litigation with the public protector, Advocate Mzwandile over the sealing of the CR17 ANC donation campaigns, that those monies that he had fundraised or had people like his confidante, James Mutladze, part and parcel of that fundraising committee for his election campaign to be ANC president. That's in the court of law. So Mzwandile Masina was essentially saying that if the president is in the court of law for any matter, he must also step aside, despite that being contrary to the ANC resolution, which categorically clearly stipulates that any member of the party or leader of the party charged with allegations of corruption, bribery or fraud must step aside. And the African National Congress has the duly right to distance itself from any individual who's tainted with allegations of corruption until the point that they clear their name. So Mzwandile Masina had misconstrued and misunderstood that particular ANC conference resolution of the 54th National Conference that was taken in that particular conference, but also saying that others who are implicated in allegations of corruption in litigation or in a court of law with allegations of fraud, corruption, or for malfeasance, they must step aside. But one must look into how many leaders of the African National Congress are currently in litigation issues. One can bring about a few names like Mzwandile, who's been cited by Eskom and the Department of Public Enterprises as they tried to recoup over 3.5 billion rands that was stolen from the power utility. He's cited alongside Brian Molefe, alongside Machala Koko, the former group acting chief executive officer of Eskom, and the Guptas, Anush Singh. He finds himself there. And there are other ANC leaders who may not be in court, particularly for fraud or corruption. We've got the likes of the National Assembly Speaker and the NEC member Thandi Modise over animal cruelty, over those pigs that had died and were feasting against one another in those, cannibalizing on one another in the Northwest Province on her farm.
So, Mzwandile, as you say, the distinction here is anybody who faces charges as opposed to anybody who faces allegations. Mzwandile Masina goes on to say that the ANC must not defend individuals. And I'm curious here what he means, especially if there's the oft-repeated phrase of collective leadership, which he himself has used in the past. So in this case, what brings this on? Is he giving himself or us a wide berth in the understanding of this?
The problem with ANC leaders, they suffer from some sort of amnesia, because a lot of them were not there when calls were being made by South Africans that former President Jacob Zuma must step down. He had issues in the court of law, and he had issues where he was charged recently with fraud and corruption, particularly around with tallies around the arms deal procurement saga in the country. There were issues of his relationship with the Guptas. There were issues of the Guptas basically dictating who becomes a member of cabinet. You look at the familiar faces that are shifted around within state-owned enterprises, from Transnet to Eskom, and their links to the Guptas, how the Gupta family had minutes of cabinet meetings. They know what would happen at what particular time. How Fikile Mbalula said that he had found out through the Guptas that he would be made minister. And those are all of the revelations that are there with South Africans calling on the former president and the alleged corruption that was taking place in the country, which prompted President Cyril Ramaphosa through a court of law judgment that a state capture commission of inquiry must be instituted, which the former president now is basically lambasting and belittling when it comes to the comments that are being made there and the role of that state capture commission of inquiry. The likes of Mzwandile Masina did not make those calls for individuals to step down. We're tainting the name of the African National Congress through the issues of allegations of corruption. They've now seemed to have found their voice with this purported new dawn that's there within the African National Congress when their political nemesis in the former Cyril Ramaphosa sits at the union buildings and sits at the 10th floor at Luthuli House. You can seemingly see that these two warring factions within the African National Congress are at each other's throats, and they're essentially debating this weekend who's more corrupt than the other, allegedly.
I want to go to exactly that. The picture that we are being painted at this point, that obviously it's happening behind the scenes, behind closed doors, that these are factions that are tearing at each other, who are going for the jugular. Has anything come out as yet as what exactly is playing itself out in terms of those fissures, the contestations within the party?
We do know that the ANC NWC member in the NWC that was held yesterday, which finished at about 2:30 in the afternoon, Tony Yengeni, did call on President Ramaphosa to lead by example and be the one to step down or step aside, rather, to put it correctly, step aside from the position of president of the ANC until he clears his name. We do know that emanating from today's discussions within the NEC, that the president has said that he will subject himself to the Integrity Commission of the African National Congress as he seeks to clear his name over the donations that are made to his CR17 campaign, and also the allegations that are currently in a court of law when it comes to the donation that was made by Pusasa to his campaign, and how he had initially said that those funds were meant for his son, but initially those funds all later on found themselves in the CR17 election account. And you've had the likes of James McClarty coming out and saying that they were the ones responsible for getting Kevin Watson to donate to that particular campaign of President Ramaphosa. We've also had former President Jacob Zuma clearly saying that this current president of the ANC doesn't even understand how the leadership of the ANC is supposed to communicate with its members, saying that he's hiding under the issue of corruption, only trying to save himself, and basically making the ANC be calling it as accused number one, contrary to that the president never said that he's saying every member of the African National Congress, the odd 780,000 audited members of the ANC last we checked in the 2015 National General Council that are there, even though they say they have over 1 million members now. President saying that he never said that every ANC Congress ANC member is corrupt and has had or benefited from proceeds of corruption, saying that it is alleged in the public domain that the ANC is seen as this corrupt organization and it needs to cleanse itself of this particular scourge of corruption.
Because we are being denied what is actually happening in that room of that meeting, a lot of fertile minds and imagination. Some people have used the word thrown down the gauntlet, almost making it seem like a cowboy standoff between President Cyril Ramaphosa and Ace Magashule. And some of those rumors have even gone as far as saying that Ace Magashule has been asked to step down, and certain people have been earmarked to act in his position. Just separate from us fact from fiction at this point as the country wonders what is going on behind those closed doors.
Well, Zepiso, let's go down memory lane. If you go back to the 2005 National General Council of the African National Congress, which took place at the University of Pretoria, Takis, you'd remember that former deputy president of the African National Congress had stepped aside or stepped down at that particular time after he was removed as the deputy president of the Republic of South Africa, Jacob Zuma. Jacob Zuma was then brought back by that particular National General Council of the ANC in 2005, where the ANC was effectively told that you don't have the powers to remove any of the officials of the African National Congress. Only a national conference of the ANC can remove a sitting president or a sitting deputy president or an official of the African National Congress in the top 6. So that issue of Ace Magashule being asked to step down is not there. The NEC does not have those powers. However, they do have the powers, or the NWC as well has the powers, to recommend that the Secretary General step aside. He still remains the Secretary General of the party, but does not perform the functions of that particular office. But we can't clearly say that the NEC has asked the Secretary General to step aside. For one, I've not gotten that information from the sources that I've spoken to within the NEC of the African National Congress. What we do know is that there was a heated debate, particularly around the political report that was tabled by President Cyril Ramaphosa in the NEC when it started yesterday afternoon. We also do know that the Secretary General, Ace Magashule, did table the NWC report and any arising matters of the African National Congress to the NEC as mandated by the National Working Committee of the African National Congress. So he has been performing his functions in the NEC till now. We do know that there's a heated debate over corruption and who and which leaders should step aside and when they should step aside and which leaders are confronted with the issues of charges of corruption.
Samkele, we are running out of time, so I'm going to ask for a brief answer on this. How much pressure would the launch of a new party impose on the already existing tensions and what is being discussed at the moment?
We do know that the ANC will discuss the electoral reforms that have to take place in the country, particularly after the Court judgment on how South Africans can't currently participate as individuals in the national elections. They can participate in local government, but they can't participate at a provincial and a national level. The Electoral Act of South Africa has to be changed in that form. We do know that will be discussed in the NWC. We do know that Phumulo Masualle, the ANC NEC member and Deputy Minister of Public Enterprises, along as Andrew Snell, will be tabling that particular report to the NEC. That is being discussed. The formation of new political formations, the ANC may not particularly reflect on that in this NEC meeting, but we do know that they have said that another breakaway from the African National Congress would hurt the ANC at the electoral polls. We did see that in these past elections, they did lose about 4%. They dropped from 62% into 58%.
All right, thanks, Samkele. Let's follow that train of thought. Samkele Maseko is SABC political reporter.